Are we heading for a new kind of conflict? Not over flags or borders, but over the actual stuff that powers our world. The water we drink, the food we eat, and yeah, even the minerals inside your phone. It's a pretty scary thought, right? That we're all just destined to fight over a shrinking pie? But is that really the whole story? Let's dig in and find out. And look, this isn't just some far-off hypothetical idea. This is a pretty stark warning from a top government scientist, Sir David King. He looked at the Iraq War and saw something new, a potential blueprint for the future. His thinking was that powerful nations will use their might to secure what they need, whether that's oil, minerals, or fertile land. It's a really bold claim, and it sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. So what's really at the heart of these conflicts? Well, the whole debate kind of boils down to two surprisingly opposite ideas. On one hand, you've got scarcity, that classic story of too many people fighting over too few resources. But on the other hand, you have something totally different, a paradox of plenty, where having a whole lot of a valuable resource is what actually lights the fuse. Let's break down both sides of this coin. All right, first up, let's tackle the scarcity argument. This is the one you hear all the time, the one that just feels like common sense. The world's population is growing, our environment is under a lot of stress, so naturally, we're going to end up fighting over whatever's left.
You know, this idea actually has a name. It's called the Neo-Malthusian model, and it paints a very clear and, honestly, a very grim picture. It goes like this. You start with more people and a damaged environment. That directly leads to a scarcity of essentials, like water or farmland. And the final step, the inevitable outcome, conflict. Ethnic clashes, insurgencies, you name it. All because people are fighting over that shrunken pie. It's a simple, powerful theory that's been hugely influential.
But this is where things get really interesting. Because when you start to look at the actual numbers, that simple, straightforward story starts to fall apart. Is the problem really a lack of stuff? Or is the issue not about the size of the pie at all, but about who's allowed to have a slice? Okay, let's start with food. Get this, right now the world produces enough grain to give every single person on the planet 3,500 calories a day. That is way more than the average person needs to survive. So from a pure production standpoint, the scarcity argument just doesn't add up. Now here is the statistic that really truly turns the scarcity argument completely on its head. A staggering 78% of all malnourished kids live in countries that are actually food surplus nations. Just let that sink in for a second. The hunger isn't happening because there isn't enough food in the country. It's a problem of who gets it. It's about access. And it's not just food. The exact same logic applies to water. As the United Nations put it, the water crisis we're facing is essentially a manufactured scarcity. It's created by politics and power structures that keep the poor from getting access. The problem isn't a lack of water in the world, it's a lack of justice on the ground. Okay, so if having too little isn't the whole story, what about having too much? And this brings us to this really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea, the resource curse, also known as the paradox of plenty.
It sounds totally backward, doesn't it? You'd think that finding massive oil reserves or diamond mines would be like winning the lottery for a country. But for so many nations, it's been the exact opposite. This resource curse shows that having tons of natural wealth can actually stunt economic growth, fuel massive corruption, and stop strong, healthy institutions from ever developing. The prize itself becomes the problem.
So how does this resource curse actually lead to fighting? Well, scholars often frame it as a greed versus grievance debate. Is a rebellion motivated by pure greed, the chance to get rich by looting valuable stuff like diamonds or oil? Or is it fueled by legitimate grievances, a deep anger at being cut out of your own country's wealth, often because of who you are or where you come from?
And this leads us to a completely different model for understanding conflict. In this view, the problem doesn't start with the environment or population. It starts with unjust social and political systems. Those systems create massive inequality, which then leads to what's called socially generated scarcity, where there's plenty for the elites, but not enough for everyone else. This is what drives conflict. So in this view, greed and grievance aren't opposites at all. They're two sides of the same coin, and they feed each other. So, we have these two big competing ideas, scarcity versus abundance. Now let's see how this all plays out in the real world. Right now, in the high-stakes game for a new set of resources, critical minerals. And here is the absolute kicker. While you can find these rare earth elements all over the globe, the process of refining them, turning the raw dirt into usable materials, is almost completely monopolized. China controls around 85% of the world's refining capacity. That gives them an unbelievable amount of leverage over the supply chains for, well, pretty much everything.
And why should you care about this? Because these minerals are in basically every piece of advanced technology we use. We're talking about the phone in your hand, the electric cars on the road, the giant wind turbines we need for green energy, and even the guidance systems and high-tech military weapons. If you control the minerals, you have a huge say in the future.
So what happens when one country has that much control? Well, you get the rise of what people are calling resource diplomacy. The US, Europe, and their allies are now scrambling to find other sources. They're investing in new mines and trying to build relationships with nations in Africa and Asia that have these critical minerals. It's like a new great game, a global chess match for the building blocks of the 21st century.
Now, I know, with all this talk of curses, competition, and global chess matches, it might feel like conflict is just a matter of time. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, and you could argue it's the most important one of all: our ability to cooperate.
Just take a look at the Jordan River Basin. This is one of the most water-scarce places on the entire planet, and it sits right in the middle of one of the world's most difficult political conflicts. I mean, by every single measure of the scarcity model, this place should be in a constant state of war over water. And yet, it isn't. The rivals here have, again and again, chosen to cooperate instead.
So how is that even possible? Well, the secret ingredient is something researchers call social capital. It's not about money or infrastructure, it's the social glue. It's the trust, the relationships, and the shared understandings between people that makes them realize they're better off working together than they are fighting apart. And this isn't some kind of magic. It's built methodically, piece by piece. You can see the steps. First, rivals like Israel and Jordan created shared institutions, like a joint water committee. Then, they set up systems to share data openly and honestly. They built up social networks, connecting not just top diplomats, but local mayors and community leaders. And over time, all of this built a shared norm, a core belief that working together, no matter how hard it is, was the only rational way forward.
And that brings us full circle, doesn't it? The coming scramble for critical minerals looks an awful lot like the water politics of the past, just on a global scale. The future won't be decided by how much lithium is in the ground. It's going to be decided by our ability or our failure to build that social capital we need to manage these resources together. The choice between cooperation and conflict is and always will be up to us.